Hello, everyone, and thanks for listening to the Quality Hub, chatting with ISO experts. I'm your host, Xavier Francis, and today I'm here with Scott Dawson, President of Core Business Solutions, and Jeanne Perron, Technical Specialist at IMEC. Glad you both could join us.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely great to be here, X. And Jeanne, it's great to do this with you. Looking forward to it.
Fabulous. Now, today's podcast is part of our Survive and Thrive series, the podcast dedicated to delivering practical strategies for small businesses. Our mission is to help you navigate these unprecedented times of change and uncertainty. Our episodes are packed with real-world advice from trusted industry experts, tailored specifically for small business leaders like you. Thanks for joining us as we explore insights that can help empower you and your business not only to survive, but thrive. Now, today's topic is controlling what you can, cost structures, and supplier strategy. But before we get into our topic, let's learn a little bit about our guest and their journey. Let's start with Jeanne. Could you share a little bit about yourself, please?
Sure. I've been 38 years in industrial manufacturing in supply chain, so various positions, director of materials, materials manager, and all the responsibilities for the supply chain, from inventory to purchasing, planning, all of that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
DePaul University is my college and where I graduated from. And it's been a long ride, and now I'm giving back and teaching and bringing people along that need a little bit more time.
Well, and that's one of the reasons you're here, to help educate us with all of that experience and your journey and help us through these crazy times.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Scott, how about you?
Well, I heard Jeanne say 38 years, which I don't buy, first of all, unless she started when she was 8. So that might have been it, Jeanne. No?
Oh, absolutely.
Young bloomer, right? She bloomed young.
I was definitely a young bloomer. We won't go there.
We won't go there. Well, I've got a few years under my belt, too, but just a joy to be here, X. I've been with Core Business Solutions 25 years. Prior to that, interesting tidbit, I was a Baptist minister in my first career. So graduated from Denver Seminary, went into a pastorate in California. This led to that. I ended up in manufacturing doing quality management, enjoyed it, and that led down the path to starting Core Business Solutions. So enjoy manufacturing. Jeanne and I are kind of kindred spirits in that regard.
Yeah.
We roll up our sleeves and get out on the shop floor and enjoy seeing how things are made. So manufacturing is an exciting world to be in, for sure. Manufacturing
is hard. And for any of us that have been in manufacturing, we understand that. And so getting some simple tools just to help things along is key to everybody's survival, right?
Yeah, because everybody's busy shipping parts, right? You got to ship those parts.
Right.
And
especially
how do you stop and think about improvement and strategy and those type of things? It's hard.
Oh, and by the way, here's all these new rule changes.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. We're here from the government and we're here to help. Yeah.
How about a tariff?
Well, I'm going to hand it over to Scott to ask some of the questions. I will interject here and there as well. So if you want to kick it off, Scott, go right ahead.
Yeah, glad to, X. And interesting, when Jeanne and I were first getting acquainted, we were talking about this episode. She mentioned this term, the silent slide, which I thought of an amusement park or a water park or something like this.
Ooh.
But no, it's got a little different connotation. So, Jeanne, let's start there. What is the silent slide that manufacturers can find themselves slipping down?
Well, probably the best way to explain that is putting you in your supplier's driver's seat. So you're your supplier, and you go and get this great new price, and you're just rubbing your hands in excitement, and the first thing you're going to do is what? Not run to your customer and give them the price discount. Right?
You're going to pocket it, right?
That's right. And there you have the beginnings of the silent slide. So if you put your mindset into that, and you as a business person, that's what you're going to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to try and hold back as long as you possibly can before you give those good prices back to your customer base.
So in essence, a manufacturer could find themselves overpaying without really realizing it.
Yeah.
Right.
And it varies, right? It just, how good is your relationship with your supplier? Are you talking about it? Are you using an index to talk about pricing and costs every week? Most people are not.
Yeah.
And so this condition could exist for months. So you're overpaying for sometimes months or even a year, and before you go back and challenge your supplier. And that's really what it's all about, is making sure that you're having that conversation with your supplier.
Yeah, for sure.
What are some of the signs that you might look for the silent slide?
Well, all of a sudden, your clients are complaining. Well, I'm getting a better price from Joe Schmo. That's one other thing. But the easiest way to know is to use an index, right? And what's an index? Well, an index for every single thing out there in the commodities exchange. So when you think about what's going on in the stock market and all the hundreds of thousands of different commodities that the world has to offer, well, there's an index for every single one of those to show you where the price has been and where it's, and kind of get an idea of where it's going, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, Jeanne, are those indexes or indices, I guess is the way you would say it,
Mm-hmm.
are they like a survey of industry? How does the data come together? Do you know much about that?
It's coming straight from the stock market.
Oh.
And there's literally thousands of different indices. And just a fun fact about indices, it's an index. The plural of an index is kind of a weird one. Is not always do you have two different plurals. One is indices and one is indexes. It just depends on your preference. But an index plural is indices. So the stock market is where these numbers are coming from. And some private entities will make their own index. They might add a little bit more for labor, and they might add a little bit more for insurance or whatever those things are. Maybe they just want to put something in there for themselves, right? It really doesn't matter because the largest percentage of that index is coming from the stock market.
Okay.
What is the actual price up and down?
Okay. All right. So then how would a business utilize index like steel or commodities pricing?
Great question.
Give us walk us through how it might work and maybe an example to help us understand.
So let's just talk about a simple index that we can all relate to. My favorite one, eggs, right?
Ooh.
And I can put that, we'll send that index to the team here so they can post it. But what do you put eggs in? Well, let's relate it to something that we all eat, pizza, right?
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Well, now I'm talking your language.
Now we're
Are
talking.
we hungry? We're hungry already, all right? Okay. So we want to look at why our costs of our pizza are going up. And if you think about a pizza and it costs $10, okay, I know that's a cheap number, especially by today's standards.
Mm-hmm.
But, generally 60% of the cost of that pizza and anything that you manufacture in the real world is between 50 and 60%. So let's say it's 60%. So it's $6 of that pizza is the cost of the materials. Well, something about it is going up. Well, I can break that down. I can look at my eggs. I can look at my flour. And if I was to look at the eggs, well, we know that's on the news today, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've all seen that. The price of eggs is going way up. Well, why is that? And what is driving that factor? Well, there's two things that you could do. One, you can go to FRED, the Federal Reserve of Economic Data, and you can look at the index and you can see what's been going on. And if you were to look at it today, it's from COVID or pre-COVID time, it's up 400 or 500%.
Wow.
Okay. Well, wow, that explains it, right? Here we are. Well, that's probably why my $6 of material cost is now $6.50 or $7.
Yeah.
Right? Now I've got to increase my price. So that's one way that you see that you're making money is your margin is being depleted. And the other way, of course, is that you've got to now pass those costs on to your customer, or your customer starts to complain as well, right?
Right.
So the other part of knowing about eggs is, and we've got this great new tool out there called AI.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can ask AI, hey, why are the price of eggs going up? And AI, they're going to come back and it's going to tell you, well, guess what? We had this really bad avian flu. And we killed millions and millions of birds to stop the spread of the avian flu. How wonderful. Now I know that. So if the flocks get bigger, guess what? The price of eggs comes down. So now you've just created your own forecast. It's great information, right? Now you know, okay, I've got to probably have this price for another year, or you can decide to hold the price and not pass it on to your clients, right? So the thing that happens there is if you're in that driver's seat and you're receiving those costs, right? And it's not an avian flu and it's general rise in the commodity. And maybe you ended up buying those eggs at a price agreement that was 6 months old.
Mm.
Are you going to tell your customer base, hey, I'm getting more margin on these pizzas I'm selling you? No. You're going to pocket it. You're going to pocket it. Therefore, Uruguay, the silent slide.
Yeah. All right. That's such a good illustration, and now I am hungry.
Yeah. Is there breakfast pizza anywhere?
Sure.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Well, Jeanne, as we put this Survive and Thrive series together, we were thinking about all the uncertainty around sourcing brought on by tariff policies and other type of things. And now it's in the news every evening. What are the implications of the cost of things? That's really kind of where it all boils down to. Now, it's going to maybe affect availability as well, but you may have a great relationship with a supplier for years. Maybe they're overseas, let's just say, and you took a lot of time to build that relationship, which they do take a lot of time to build.
Right.
You got the trust, you got all the systems in place, you know how to troubleshoot with that supplier, all those things. And all of a sudden your prices are going to, potentially be fluctuating, or maybe they have been. If I'm hearing you right, an index could help you kind of level set.
Yeah.
Where should our costs be? Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how do you know you're getting the best price to the market and your supplier isn't pocketing that extra change? Well, you look at an index.
Yeah.
I mentioned an index from the Federal Reserve of Economic Data. You go and you can get the index. So if I was to look at it like a steel index, we're living in really unprecedented times post-COVID. We have had inflation like we have never had it before.
Yeah.
And when you have that, you need to manage it. Well, how do I manage it? Well, you go and look at that index and you can see what the price is. Well, it really did go up. And if your supplier is saying, hey, sorry, I got to give you another price increase. And if you're like many of us who survived that period of inflation, it was every single month you're getting a new price.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard to live with, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So if you want to use that index to negotiate with your supplier, you can say, all right, every time the index goes up 3 or 4% or 5 or whatever that number is, you could give me a price increase. But every time it goes down 3 or 5%, you're going to give me a decrease.
Mm.
And it's that simple. It's that simple. It's a line on a graph. There's no more arguing about whether the price is going up or going down, because now you're measuring it to an actual index. Pick the index, doesn't matter, but you're measuring it to a bar. And now your conversations with your suppliers are no longer about costs. How wonderful is that?
That is great.
Your quality is terrible. Yeah, right? We can talk about your delivery times, all of those other things that the relationship now gets better, right? When you're not haggling over numbers and that mistrust from whether what you're being charged is no longer in the picture, guess what? Your relationship gets better.
Yeah. So, Jeanne, I guess I'm thinking about, as you introduced yourself, your background in procurement and purchasing. You've done this for a living for a couple of years. I won't say how many, but a couple of years. And so I could envision a purchasing manager or someone responsible might look at their top suppliers, maybe their top 10 suppliers or top 10 parts that they purchase, or top 10, whatever you want to call it, sort the list. And then look up on the indexes, if I'm following this right, look up on the various indices.
You already got it, Scott. Way to go.
And then look up the going price, if you will, or the market price.
Right.
And then work on what's the delta. And now, do I initiate conversation with the key suppliers on those key commodities. That sounds like that's kind of the approach one might take.
Yeah, so I now work for IMEC, and we are the Illinois MEP for the state of Illinois, and we help small and medium-sized manufacturers just do that. We help prepare them. We help find that right index. We help them learn what it is to have that conversation with that supplier, and how do you build that negotiation. So that's really the key thing is, once you know you have an index, well, now what do I do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you prepare to talk to your supplier, right? You get all of the issues that you might be having going on, and you put them into a negotiation prepared, right? You prepare it, and then you have that conversation, and you lead with, hey, I want to measure this commodity off of an index. And is it every single thing that you're spending? Most companies have hundreds of suppliers. So no, you're talking about the top 5-10% of your suppliers that represents maybe 60 to 70% of your total spend, or use the 80-20, however you want to do it.
That's right. Yeah.
And so we help you go through and step through the process of preparing that conversation, preparing the negotiation, and what outcomes do you want? What are your gives? What are your takes? All of those good things. So that's what we're here to help you do.
That's wonderful. So let's say you're looking at this, and I don't want to get too into the details of what's going on, but we all know there's tariffs. Let's say something that you get from offshore, and the price is just going ridiculous because of tariffs, and you're considering switching to maybe a more local supplier or something like that.
Right.
That can make businesses nervous, and when might be the right time to do it? When might be the wrong time to do it? And how do you have a discussion with the supplier in that specific event?
Well, we're having those conversations now, Lex.
Yeah.
We're actually having clients that are thinking through it, and you need to.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that there's this chaos with the tariffs. Is it implemented? I don't know. How much is implemented? Well, they changed their mind today.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what you need to be worried about.
Okay.
What you need to be worried about is what is the potential future bad state, and plan for it. Build a plan for it. If they are really, with, like in the case of China, where it's like they're planning on 100% sometimes, if those relationships break down, and they have,
Mm-hmm.
then you should be planning for the worst case scenario. If you're in China, you should be planning for the worst case scenario, and you should be trying to figure out how you're going to reshore that product. And it's not just reshoring. Maybe I want to bring it to a different country that has good tariff situation.
Okay.
So you got to think through what that is and build your strategy, and don't do it in a vacuum. We're here to help strategize. Getting more people in the room to have this conversation, there's more ideas, and you pull those ideas together. There's also that thing called, the free trade zone. Tariffs are going kind of up and down. Some people have actually been able to take advantage of it, and they parked all of their goods in a warehouse for a free trade zone. And then when the tariff disappeared again, which has been happening, right? Today it's on, tomorrow it's off. They were releasing the goods when the tariff was lower.
Mm.
So free trade zones are another whole big different story, unrelated to indices. But still, if a tariff goes in and it stays for a while, then it'll start to impact the index, right? Then the costs, you can see the costs being attributed to the cost of that index. And the index starts to move. But the index, it's about a month and a half behind. And so these up and down things aren't really reflected in that.
Okay.
So you have to kind of be careful with an index and tariffs. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure does. And it seems like it's got to be looking at more longer term trends than day-to-day changes.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
And for me, being not ever into manufacturing, my background's not there. Maybe you can tell me this as sort of a beginner. Are there indices that are both offshore and local?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's just look at copper. Right?
Okay.
That's one of my favorites, right? Copper has a COMEX, which is COMEX, which is an index in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And then the London Metal Exchange, the LME, has its own copper index. And they're pretty close, but there's differences. One is slightly higher and one is slightly lower. They never match.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it just depends on where you're buying and what index your supplier is using, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you negotiate that as well. And we help you negotiate and figure out how to have that conversation with your supplier.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, just kind of summarizing the main point is I'm hearing it next. You're going to like this way I'm doing this.
All right.
So what Jeannie's saying is don't have all your eggs in one basket. Is that right?
Oh,
Ouch.
nice.
Oh,
Nice.
Let me pull a sword out.
Yeah.
I've been thinking that one the whole time.
yeah.
As soon as you said egg, she was probably like, I got that one in the back.
Do you feel better now, Scott? You got that out.
I do. Well, Jeannie, this has really been helpful. I'll tell you, as we've gotten to know the MEP centers around the U.S., there are 51 or 52 centers, certainly all 50 states, Puerto Rico, and I don't know if there's another territory in there, but there is a MEP center like IMEC in your region, in your state. Not all of them specialize. You don't have a specialist like Jeannie, but boy, if you are in Illinois, you need to be calling IMEC and getting some guidance. And maybe IMEC could point you to maybe some other resources, perhaps, if you're not in Illinois. But these are great resources. MEPs, manufacturing extension partnerships, fantastic resources in the U.S. I think a little bit underutilized, and maybe as one of the nation's secret weapons on helping manufacturers succeed. And right now, manufacturers need to succeed.
Yes.
That's right.
You know, they need to survive, they need to thrive, and there's just so much uncertainty. But folks like Jeannie are watching, you know, not just the short term, what's happening today, but have this experience that can be shared. And I've found that to be true in all of the MEP centers we've collaborated with. And Jeannie is just a case study in the excellence you get, the service you get from an MEP.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that, Scott. That was just such a great closing statement with MEPs all over the country. IMEC itself is a nonprofit. We're not going anywhere. We're here to help those small and medium-sized manufacturers.
Yeah, it's great.
And reach out, look up MEP, Google it. You'll find it. There's one in your state.
Absolutely.
IMEC is here for all of our partners, and reach out. It's not just about the cost. We help in all facets of manufacturing, whether it's lean or whatever that might be that you're having trouble with your ERP system. We're here for you.
Really appreciate you being here. This has been great. I know I've learned a lot.
Good.
I'm going to go have a pizza.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, right? Now that I got you sufficiently hungry.
Jeannie, thank you. This has been a joy and great to get to know you, and hopefully we get to collaborate down the road again. So
awesome.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. And that wraps up this episode of the Survive and Thrive series on the Quality Hub podcast, where we unpack real-world insights and share practical strategies to help small businesses like yours. If you found these conversations helpful, share them with your colleagues, your network, or anyone who could use a boost of practical guidance. You can access all past episodes on our website at thecoresolution.com, and be sure to check out the podcast description for contact information on Core Business Solutions and our podcast guests. And remember, thriving in a changing world starts with knowledge and the courage to act on it. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep leading with clarity, resilience, and purpose. Have a great day.